The memo from the new CEO, Alistair Finch, had been precise, almost clinically cheerful, a day of fun, food, and family under the sun. The annual picnic for Sterling West Solutions was a tradition, but this year, with a 35-year-old wunderkind at the helm, it felt different. Alistair was all about breaking down barriers, fostering a flat hierarchy, and creating a synergistic, holistic, and authentically connected workplace. His corporate jargon was as polished as his $1,000 shoes. Every morning, Alistair would grab a coffee from the lobby barista and stand by the floor-to-ceiling windows of his corner office, watching the city wake up. And every morning, at precisely 8:15 a.m., he'd see him, the mailman. He was an older black man, probably in his late 60s, with a gait that was steady and unhurried. He moved with a quiet dignity that Alistair found fascinating. While Alistair managed 5,000 employees and billions in assets, this man managed his cart of letters and packages with what seemed like a complete lack of stress. They had started with a nod, which evolved into a good morning, and eventually, brief conversations. Alistair learned his name was Samuel Jones. He learned Samuel had 2 grandkids he doted on and a passion for restoring old fountain pens. There was a wisdom in Samuel's eyes, a calm perspective that Alistair, who lived by quarterly reports and shareholder meetings, found himself envying. One sunny Tuesday, 3 days before the picnic, Alistair was waiting for his car when Samuel finished his delivery. "Big plans for the weekend, Mr. Finch?" Samuel asked, his smile genuine. "The usual," Alistair sighed. "Company picnic. Trying to convince everyone we're one big happy family." Samuel chuckled, a deep, warm sound. "The trick to family is showing up. The rest sorts itself out." An idea, impulsive and born from his crusade for authenticity, sparked in Alistair's mind. "Samuel, you should come," he said. "As my guest. There'll be more food than anyone knows what to do with." "Please, I'd be honored." Samuel looked taken aback, his eyes scanning Alistair's face. He saw the earnestness there. "That's a very kind offer, Mr. Finch." "Are you sure?" "I'd hate to impose." "Nonsense. It's at noon on Saturday. Lakeside Park. Just show up," Alistair insisted, clapping him on the shoulder before sliding into his waiting town car. He felt a surge of satisfaction. This was it. This was breaking down barriers. Lakeside Park was a sea of Sterling West's signature blue and silver. Balloons bobbed in the breeze, the smell of gourmet barbecue wafted through the air, and a string quartet played softly near the catering tents, Alistair's touch. The executive team had clustered near the large oak tree, a tight-knit circle of expensive casual wear and quiet networking. Brenda, the senior VP of marketing, held court, a glass of champagne in her hand, her laughter sharp and loud. When Samuel arrived, he was wearing simple khaki trousers, a neatly pressed blue short-sleeved shirt, and comfortable walking shoes. He carried a small, Tupperware container. He looked around, a little lost in the sea of corporate logos and forced merriment. Alistair spotted him and waved him over. "Samuel. I'm so glad you made it." As Samuel walked towards the CEO, a ripple of confusion spread through the executive clique. Whispers erupted like static. "Who is that?" one junior VP asked. "It's the mailman," Brenda scoffed, not bothering to lower her voice. "Honestly. What is Alistair thinking? Is this bring your service worker to the picnic day?" Her circle tittered. The judgment was a palpable force, an invisible wall forming around Samuel. He felt it instantly. It was a feeling he hadn't experienced in over 30 years, but one he recognized with a weary familiarity. Alistair, oblivious, made introductions. "Everyone, this is my friend, Samuel Jones. Samuel, this is Brenda, our marketing guru, Tom, our CFO." The handshakes were limp, the smiles tight and fleeting. Brenda looked Samuel up and down, her gaze lingering on his worn shoes. "A mailman," she said, her voice dripping with condescension. "How quaint." "Alistair, we were just discussing the Q3 projections for the European market. I doubt Mr. Jones wants to be bored with all that." She turned her back on him, a clear and deliberate dismissal. The circle closed again, leaving Samuel and Alistair on the outside. Alistair's face flushed with anger. He had wanted to build bridges, but instead, he had inadvertently led his friend into an ambush of snobbery. Samuel, however, remained serene. He simply smiled. "She might be surprised what a mailman finds interesting," he said softly, for Alistair's ears only. He then excused himself. "I saw a rather impressive rose garden over there. And I brought some of my wife's famous brownies." He opened the Tupperware container for Alistair to see. For the next hour, Samuel became a ghost at the feast. He spoke to the catering staff, who treated him as an equal. He had a long conversation with a group of children about the rules of tag. He sat on a bench and watched the lake, a portrait of tranquility amidst the simmering social tension. The executives pointedly ignored him, their laughter a little louder, their conversation a little more exclusive whenever he was near. They saw a simple, out-of-place old man, and their collective superiority was suffocating. The breaking point came during Alistair's keynote speech. He stood on a small, portable stage, microphone in hand, talking about the future of Sterling West. And our biggest challenge remains the logistics division, Alistair was saying. We've sunk millions into a Project Titan, but our supply chain efficiency is still lagging behind our competitors by 12%. We can't seem to crack it. From the back of the crowd, Brenda shouted playfully, maybe we should ask the mailman. He knows all about logistics, right? A wave of cruel laughter rippled through the executives. It was the final straw. Alistair's face turned to stone. He was about to unleash a torrent of fury on his senior VP, to fire her right there in front of everyone. But before he could speak, a calm, resonant voice cut through the air. You're approaching it all wrong. All heads turned. Samuel Jones was walking slowly towards the stage. The laughter died in people's throats, replaced by a stunned silence. He hadn't raised his voice, but it carried an authority that was absolute. He stopped about 10 feet from the stage and looked at Alistair. Your problem isn't your supply chain. It's your data integration. You're using a decentralized model for a Titan, letting each regional hub manage its own inventory metrics. You get lag, data corruption, and you're always reacting to shortages instead of anticipating them. Alistair stared, dumbfounded. Samuel was reciting the core, confidential problem of their most expensive project. Samuel continued, his gaze sweeping over the silent, shocked faces of the executives. You need to centralize your data warehousing. Real-time analytics, predictive modeling based on historical sales data, and dynamic routing algorithms. You're trying to fix the trucks and warehouses, Mr. Finch. You need to fix the information. The chain is only as strong as the data that commands it. Tom, the CFO, stepped forward, his face pale. That's the exact conclusion the consultants from McKinsey presented to the board last week. A proposal that's going to cost us $5 million just to implement. How could you possibly know that? Samuel's gaze finally landed on Brenda, who looked like she had seen a ghost. The condescending smirk was gone, replaced by a mask of pure, horrified disbelief. Because 30 years ago, I faced the same problem at a company called Apex Distribution, Samuel said, his voice even. We were bleeding money. I fired the consultants, brought in a team of 3 young programmers from Caltech, and we built the system ourselves. We called it Odyssey. It turned the company around and became the industry standard for the next decade. A young analyst in the back, a business history nerd, was frantically scrolling on his phone. His eyes went wide. He looked up from his screen, his voice trembling. Oh my God, he whispered, but it sounded like a shout in the dead silence. Apex Distribution. Odyssey system. Sir, he said, looking at Samuel. You're not just a mailman. Samuel gave a small, sad smile. Not always, no. The analyst looked at the stunned crowd. He's Samuel Jones. They used to call him the Fixer. He was the CEO of Sterling Global for 15 years. He took a company on the verge of bankruptcy and turned it into a Fortune 500 powerhouse. He retired 6 years ago. The name, Sterling Global, hung in the air. It was the parent company of their own Sterling West Solutions. This man didn't just know their business, his legacy was the very reason their company existed. He hadn't just delivered their mail. He could have bought and sold their entire division with a single phone call. The silence that followed was deafening. The string quartet had stopped playing. The birds in the trees seemed to have gone quiet. Every single employee, from the junior accountants to the senior VPs, was frozen, replaying the last hour in their minds. Their whispers, their dismissive glances, their cruel jokes. Brenda looked like she was about to be physically ill. She had mocked the man who had built the empire that paid her 6-figure salary. Samuel looked at Alistair, whose own shock was giving way to a profound, dawning respect. I retired because I was tired, Mr. Finch, Samuel said, his voice softer now. Tired of boardrooms. Tired of people who saw a title instead of a person. I'd spent 40 years chasing profits, and I realized I hadn't made a single real friend. My doctor told me I needed to slow down or I wouldn't see my grandkids grow up. So I did. He gestured to his simple clothes. I became a mailman because I wanted to be a part of a neighborhood, not a corporation. I wanted to walk in the sun. I wanted to talk to people about their gardens and their children, not their quarterly earnings. I wanted to be judged on the quality of my character, not the size of my portfolio. He looked around at the sea of ashamed faces. Today, you all looked at me and saw a mailman. You saw a uniform and a job, and you made a judgment. You weren't curious. You weren't kind. You were dismissive. You failed a very simple test of character. He turned to leave. Thank you for the invitation, Alistair, he said, his voice kind again. Your heart is in the right place. Just remember, a truly flat hierarchy isn't about getting rid of titles. It's about learning to see the person behind them. Samuel Jones, the retired Fortune 500 CEO, the man they called the Fixer, walked away, leaving behind a park full of the most expensively and properly humbled employees in the corporate world. He got into his modest sedan, the Tupperware of brownies sitting on the passenger seat, and drove home to his quiet, simple, and incredibly rich life. The picnic ended early. The synergistic, holistic, and authentic atmosphere had evaporated, replaced by a thick, heavy cloud of shame. And Alistair Finch knew that the real work of changing his company's culture had only just begun. I hope this story resonated with you. It's a reminder that we should never judge a book by its cover, because you never know the incredible stories people hold within them. If you enjoyed this story, please show your support by hitting that like button, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more dramatic and inspiring stories just like this one. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below.